Morning everybody, it's Nick, as you can see, unpolished, raw in the flesh, as per normal. Is there any other way? So I had a bit of an epiphany over the weekend actually. I was at a rather amazing yoga retreat, and yoga is something that I found has been a consistent theme in terms of supporting me, and that I've been able to stick with all the way through my menopause right from the start. And I discovered yoga because my normal, very high intensity type sports were becoming more and more difficult to sustain. Actually, it did result. I was a squash player, and it did result in tearing my Achilles tendon because, as we get older, as the consultant said when I went to see him, it's one of the things that happen as we get older. So I think that's the big takeaway first, is yoga has been really consistently supportive for me. I do something called forest yoga at the minute. I have experimented with lots of different yoga. I really like forest yoga. I go to classes. It's called Brave Yoga with a wonderful lady called Polly. I'll drop her website actually in the link below, but so that's the first thing. But I was on a day retreat with her on Sunday, which was really fantastic. But there was a few things. It's funny how the universe kind of puts these things in your mind's eye. And, this perspective started to form in my mind. So firstly, I randomly listened to a YouTube video. Again, I'll drop the link in the text below, because if anybody's like me, I can't remember the woman's name now, so I'll need to look it up. But I just literally pressed play to whatever popped up on my YouTube as I was driving back in the car to listen to the audio, because I dropped my son at Leeds Festival and I had like a long drive and there was loads of traffic, and I thought, I find really heavy music a bit of a sensory overload for me. And there was this lady, and she was talking about the fact that effectively we're becoming energetic rather than just physical beings, and that relying on our five senses is a very physical thing, and that actually we need to rely on more than that now, because life is becoming as much about energy as it is physicality, and therefore things such as our intuition are really, really important. And to get to that, obviously things such as mindfulness and meditation, both of which certainly the hearing specialist I went to see. So for those of you who may or may not know, sensory overload is something that is really, really, really acute for me. I really have to manage my environments very, very carefully. And it creates a very visceral physical response, a very palpable level of anxiety in me. And I wondered if it was something to do with my hearing. So I'd seen a hearing specialist, and he was saying that he's starting to see a seriously high number of women of menopausal age suffering from this, coming to him with hearing problems. And actually, if anything, what it is that actually it's more to do with our nervous systems than our hearing. So we're becoming really, really sensitive to everything around us, and our nervous systems are kind of stuck in high alert, not helped by the fact that one of the things in menopause is we get a lot of interrupted sleep, and therefore our nervous system doesn't really get a chance to recuperate fully if we don't get enough of the proper quality deep sleep. I know there are various different terms for different types of sleeps, none of which I can remember, obviously. And one of the things he said is, rather than using medication to dumb down the sensitivity in the nerves, because it actually dumbs down lots of things you don't want to as well. Sorry, I got distracted there. I just got a message that comes up in the video. He was suggesting mindfulness meditation. So all of these, people are just coming at it a different way, but even the science and the medicine is coming at it the same way. So what this lady was talking about was very much that we're energetic being, intuition, and actually tapping into more energetic senses, that well basically your energy is really important. And that one of the things we find when we're in circumstances that we can't change, and I know this is a really old saying, then if we can't change the circumstances in the environment, maybe we need to change our perspective and the way we are looking at it. And she talks about a house with different floors in, and getting up to the different floors, and that as you go up the floors, you start to become more energetically aware, and actually you start to have a much better wider perspective and a much better ability to actually see things for, how they really are. She's obviously far more eloquent than me. So that's the first dot. So there's a few dots here and this is about the menopause, so bear with, it will come together. So that was the first dot. The second dot was on Instagram. I really like Instagram, and I can actually lose quite a lot of time on it if I'm not strict with myself. But the reason I really like it is I'm really strict about my feed, and I only have really nourishing things in my feed. So I have a lot of philosophy and Buddhism in there because I just think it helps. It's pause for thought. I also have lots and lots and lots of cookery and gardening and lovely design things that I follow, but not like your posh kind of, ooh, look at me kind of braggy things, like very authentic, genuine, abundant things that are just beautiful to look at. So actually I find it quite soothing. And one of the quotes that popped up, and I was like, oh my God, that spoke straight to my heart, was I've spent all summer trying to get back, doing nothing to try and get back to me. Obviously the quote was more eloquent than that, but that's effectively what it said. That really struck home because I took a break from work. My work as a soul midwife, end of life emotional support. I took a break right at the start of the summer because I think I was just getting burnt out. I was just sad a lot of the time. I was very tired and I was just getting a bit burnt out, and realised I just needed to pause and take a break and really enjoy the summer, enjoy being with the family, enjoy being here for my family. And it really hit me, and I thought, oh my God, that is just so true. And there's a third, I've lost my train of thought. There's a third point. So let's see if the third point comes back to me. But all of this led me to say, maybe the menopause. So anytime we face adversity and challenges in our life, that's nearly 9 times out of 10 where our growth comes from. I know that personally. And I also know personally that when things feel really hard and I'm feeling really down in the dumps, I'm feeling poorly, I'm not feeling very physically well, that's actually when my creativity really kicks in. There's something about that. And then it kind of made me that was it. The third point was one of the things that I find quite difficult is when I look back at, say, pictures of me when I was really young, say in my teens and 20s, when I think back to certain things that happened during that period of growing up, I feel very, very sad, and I often cry. And the reason that happens is because I see a very young, vulnerable young woman who was quite lost a lot of the time and who had to be a certain way in order to survive. But that certain way wasn't really who she was. And if you spoke to people and they described me as a very young child, it would be a very different description to if you spoke to somebody and asked them to describe me as a teenager and a woman in my 20s. So what I started with as a young child was very genteel, quite introverted, loved to read, spend time on my own. That kind of gives you an impression. Whereas if you'd met me in my teens and my 20s, it would have been, quite very fiery, very feisty, very ambitious, very ballsy, very extrovert, very in your face, very out there. Two completely different sides of the coin. Which one's the true me? And I think one of the reasons I feel this grief, this is the big third point, is about grief, is that I am grieving for somebody, for the loss of my authentic self. And it occurs to me that there's something that happens when we reach the menopause that brings all of those aspects together. And I know that a lot of my sadness and my tears and that really bereft feeling is actually grief. And it's grief for the loss of who I really am. And I think there's something else that's going on with my menopause, which actually means that the ability to continue to pretending to be somebody I'm not is just no longer there. Because maybe it's because of the stuff that's happening in my brain, maybe it's because of the imbalance in the hormones. I'm not quite sure. I think the science and the medicine, I think if we only focus on the biology and the science and the medicine, I think we are missing a huge chunk of what the menopause means, certainly for me, because I think it's as much emotional healing journey as it is a physical. So there is a lot of grief for so many things that I feel a lot of the times. And one of the big things that really hit me is this loss of who I really was. And all of these things have really triggered me. And taking this summer just to step back and literally just live in a little bubble at home, and I actually spend most of my time reading, has really allowed me to start to think about who I really am. And actually, I'm not quite the extrovert that everybody always has thought I am. I'm not quite the party animal. I'm hugely creative, but I'm also quite genteel, and I like quiet, and I like to read, and I do like to spend time on my own. And I do like things to be softer and slower and easier. So there's a lot of emotional healing that I think we might be at risk of missing out on when we only look at ourselves through the perspective of biology, which is huge, right? I don't downplay that for a minute. I am booked in on the 5th of September to get my next HRT implant in. I will be getting a stronger HRT implant in terms of higher estrogen, because I obviously need more than I had last time. When I came back from the yoga retreat on Sunday, it was 2 hours of quite hardcore yoga in the morning, and then it was like yin yoga and journaling and some quite deep stuff in the afternoon. But I had to take both ibuprofen and paracetamol because my body really ached. So there's a real, and I know having to lay down every afternoon with really chronic exhaustion. When I was driving back from Leeds on Friday, honestly, I thought at one point, I'm going to have to pull in for 10 minutes because I'm so exhausted. And that was only 11 o'clock in the morning. So there is a real physical thing that happens, and my body desperately needs some more estrogen. There's no two ways about that. But we are so much more nuanced than that. There's so much more to us than just our physicality. And for anybody who gets the chance, again, I'll put it in the comments. Gabor talks about the fact that we need to treat ourselves holistically, and it's mind, body, and soul, and that they all work. It's all an intrinsic, very, key part. And that this emotional healing and this recognizing the grief we all, I'm sure, one of the things I said actually the other day is, in a way, we're all the walking wounded. It's just, do we understand? Do we give permission? Do we recognize those wounds? Do we give them the time they need to heal? And I think there's an awful lot of emotional healing that needs to go on here, that somehow, for some way, the menopause brings open. And that's really the point of this vlog today, is to say we are multifaceted, and I think it is this multifaceted approach. So I think there's something very key about the environment and managing our environment. This go rat race environment is just, for me, it kills me. It kills me inside and outside. Physically, I can't cope with it, and soulfully it kills me. So I think we have to, in whatever way we can, find this nurturing in whatever way we can in the environments we're presented with. And if we can't change our environments, what this woman was talking about was changing our perspective and the way we look at it, is the only option left to us. And then there is something about the emotional healing, and we can only heal something that we recognise is there. And this level of grief, so much grief about so many things. But ultimately, I think what's at the heart of it is grief of the loss of who I really am. And actually, once that seed of thought's in my head, I'm able to then go, actually, what is it that really brings me joy? I was at a wedding, and somebody asked me this question. It was a really beautiful question. And they said to me, so I can't remember the exact words, but it was something like, what is the thing? What is the thing? What is the thing that brings you that moment of peace and comfort? What is your thing? What's the thing that takes you to the happy, content place? And I really had to think about the answer. I really had to think about it. And it was such a lovely question, rather than saying, what do you do for a living? It was so much deeper than that. It was such more interesting. And do you know what? It came to me, I went, oh my God, my happy, peaceful, content place is sitting in the garden, in nature, with a really nice cup of tea, and a lovely book, with no interruptions, and with no, distractions and pressure to be or to do something else, and just to immerse myself in this beautiful world of beautiful fiction and non-fiction that we have out there. And yeah, that really got me thinking about who am I really? So, gosh, I'm not really sure how much sense I've made here, but it felt really important to share that the menopause may well be this bloody wonderful opportunity, albeit a really difficult one, but this really wonderful opportunity to get back to who I really am, and to also create an environment that nurtures that person, rather than that young girl who I look at, who I can weep when I look at her, because I'm really sad that of who she had to become in order to survive in the world that I lived in all those years ago. And that is really something, isn't it? That is really something when we think about that deep stuff. And the physical stuff absolutely is a no-brainer for me. But that's the really big point. It's not just one thing, it's all of these things. And that's why I think we all find it so challenging, and it's such a roller coaster. And we can change from one thing to the next, and maybe, I think I said this before, the best we can do is really allow ourselves to look at where we are and how we're feeling, and really start to peel back the layers. And just of late, there's just been a few things coming to me, and I'm like, wow, yeah, this is trying to tell me something. So I guess what I'm trying to do is, I can't change the fact that I'm having this menopause. This menopause is a reality. But I am trying, and I think that's what these vlogs are, a lot of these vlogs are about, is to change my perspective on it in order to take from it as much as I can. All right, I hope that helps. Lots of love.